Eva Sidash was in Ukraine, and we thought better to get it done when she was able to record. So, but she may be able to come in later on. We're hoping, of course, it's early morning, in the evening there in Europe. As you know, this is our 13th week of doing these presentations. It gets us to over 50 presentations of covering the war in Ukraine, and can't thank the photojournalists enough for putting themselves in harm's way and reporting back to us. I also thank our sponsors, Pro Photo Daily, Photo Shelter, Epson, American Photography. We started the week off with Svet Jacqueline, and yesterday we had Sasha Maslov, who also all of these presentations will be on our YouTube channel by, I guess, Wednesday or Thursday of next week, depending upon Jay's workload. And on Friday, we'll have Svet Bashvanova and Sarah Lean speaking about their latest book. And tomorrow we'll have Mark David Harris and Madeline Kelly presenting. And tonight we have Eva. And before we continue, I cannot thank Jay enough for pulling all this stuff together. He's sort of the unsung hero of doing all these presentations with me, and with people at different times and different channels, and all these different things. And some people are more challenged technologically than others. And he's, a soothing force for all of that. So I can't really thank you enough. I mean, he's an aggravating motherfucker, I'll tell you that. That's the other side of it. But the guy pulls the whole thing together for me. And without him, I really couldn't do it. So Jay, a shout out to you. Thank you so very, very much. So with that, Jay, hit the button and let's see Eva. I'm thrilled that everyone has come in for this presentation. This is our 13th week of presenting photographers who are covering the war in Ukraine. And today we had Eva Sidash, who will be presenting actually in Ukraine, and we're pre-recording just because of the logistics and everything else that's involved. We thank Epson, Photo Shelter, Pro Photo Daily, American Photography for always helping us along the journey of doing these presentations. So Eva, the stage is yours. Share your screen and off we go.
Thank you so much, Frank. I'm very happy to be here. And today I will tell a little bit about myself and about my personal view on war through photography. Let me share my screen. Oh, I cannot. It says it's disabled.
Okay, let's see what we have to do there. More. Okay, so now you are a co-host. Okay, you should be able to do it now. Yep.
Okay. Can you see?
Yes, everything's fine. Great. You just have to go to full screen. Yeah, there you go. Great.
So my name is Eva Sidash. I'm documentary photographer from Ukraine, and I want to tell you a little bit about the transition of documentary photographer to conflict photographer, and how sometimes these choices are made just because the war happens exactly in your country. Because I would say that no one is ready to wake up due to the explosions, and I would never forget the first morning of full-scale war in Ukraine when I woke up because of the explosions and because of my windows shaking. And of course, this moment I would never forget. And I do remember this first day when I'm standing in the middle of my room and I had no idea what to do. I was just packing some emergency bag just in case. And of course, it was scary. And of course, it was very confusing. What should we do? How should we behave? But I do remember that after these moments of just staying, being confused, what should I do? How should I react? I saw my camera and I took it in my hand. I was holding it in my hands, and that was like very obvious moment for me that I will document what is happening in my country, because otherwise I just cannot. I never imagined myself, and I never had any experience photographing conflicts and wars before, but when the war literally comes to your house, to your home, you have to react. And for me, that was very obvious answer that yes, okay, Eva, you are here and you are in Ukraine and you need to do something. And what I can do, I can take pictures and document what is happening in my country. So this is here you can see my very first picture I took of the full-scale war. This is in Lviv railway station, and this was first evacuation trains to Poland from Ukraine. And I do remember when I came there, it was such a mess. I never saw so many people. People were running across the tracks, under the trains. People were sleeping on the platforms. Trains were not running. And of course, I was documenting this whole day, but again, my very first picture I took was this one. And I do remember when I was staying at home in the evening and looking at the pictures I made of this day, I saw this one and I was honestly surprised to see that this is the first picture I took. Because I do remember everything that was happening on that day. And in my understanding, what is war? What is war? War is about death, it's about violence, it's about weapon. But also looking at this image, I realized this is about life and about support and about help of one another. And of course, as a photojournalist, we need to be as much objective as possible, for sure. But if we think about it deeper, like, can we be objective 100%? Because basically, we decide where we point our camera, or we decide how do we frame this picture and what is in front of us. And for me, seeing this image, I realized that this is another side of war, which I never realized before. And that was for me like choice that for sure I will document the war, how it is happening, but I also will definitely highlight these moments of humanity, which still
So,
exists.
yeah. So, I mean, this is like a whole new world for you, right? And you come back, this is the first image. And so can you speak to how it felt, from your family's perspective? You tell them you're going to cover the war. This is so new to you. I mean, and how did it feel to just jump in?
That's a very good question because I do remember this very first reaction of my family. My father, he was super worried about, actually everyone was worried what is happening. No one knew what to expect. And I remember I have a sister and she has a nephew. He was 8 years old back then. And I remember my father called all of us. We all live separately, but he called us and he said, "Okay, now you need to go and to flee Ukraine and to find safer place." And my sister didn't want to go. She wanted to stay, but he was saying that Vika, you need to go. You have small child. You are responsible for him. And she was thinking about this. And then, of course, he told me the same, Eva, you have to go. It's dangerous. You shouldn't stay here. But for me, that was so obvious that no, I'm staying and I will be here. And I will not just stay, I will go farther. I will go to Eastern Ukraine and I will cover the war. So that was my very um, surprising reaction, even for myself, to be that confident of what I'm going to do. I
But
never
but
expected.
but that must be so painful for a father. I am listening to you, and I have my two children as well. Like, how do you convince your dad that this is okay? I'll be okay.
That's really good question because I feel we have very special bond with our family.
Hmm.
And usually when they say something, we try to hear, to listen to them. Even now, I'm 29, my sister is 36, but we still have this feeling that probably like we need to listen to them sometimes. But here, for me, that was so I was so sure that I have to stay here and I have to do whatever I can for my country.
Mm,
And my family just saw this confidence and they realized that they will not stop me, and what
mm.
they can do, they can support me, which I really appreciate because I do realize how difficult it was for them, but they saw how sure I am about what I'm going to do, that they had no other choice just to support me, which I'm really
Yeah,
so happy.
fathers realize that with their girls. You know, girls can be, we have an expression, pig-headed, with going to do whatever we want to do. I have that. I have the same daughter. Okay, yeah, so that's very interesting. I mean, it must be so worrying for them, for you all of a sudden to be what they had in their minds to now a wartime photojournalist. How did that happen? That's very hard for them, I'm sure.
Yeah, but I'm very happy that they support me, and
Yeah.
even now they support me even more because they see that I can do this. Like I'm capable of doing this because it is really hard. Emotionally, it is difficult, but when you see that you can cope with these situations, and it gives you this kind of confidence which I never had before because I never knew that I can photograph such things. But if I can, I will do this for sure. And so this is I'm showing you these pictures from these first days, and this is still evacuation. And also, we always think about this eternal question, should we, as a photographer or a photojournalist, should we photograph or should we help? And I was also thinking about this before the wars, watching these movies, and what should we do? And for example, here I also realized that so the situation here was that this was very first trains to Poland, and they were packed with people, and people were not allowed to take big suitcases, and they were just literally leaving everything they had in the platform, and only women with children were trying to get there, and they were like standing because it was literally packed. And I remember that I had this small bottle of water, and I gave this bottle of water. I don't remember was this the same woman or maybe it was another woman, but I definitely remember the way she looked at me with this kind of need and appreciation. And for me, I realized that now at this moment I need to help. And after that, I will make pictures. And that's what also came to my understanding that yes, we are photographers. Yes, we need to document what we see, but we are humans at the first
Right.
place.
I love that photograph, the one before, because you cannot tell if she's taking the bread or giving the bread. You really don't know who's helping who here. I love that image.
Thank you, Frank.
Yeah.
So I started so firstly I was covering the situation in my country in Lviv. I'm from Lviv, from Western Ukraine. And then I started going to Kharkiv, to other cities of Ukraine, because for me it was important to show the whole picture of what's happening in Ukraine. And also, I will talk a lot about this today because I feel that's really very important, at least for me, to highlight that yeah, we all got used to this violence images of war, which is 100% important. But besides that, what's happening in the country of active war? So this, for example, a lot of people ask about this picture because they just don't understand what's going on here. And I want to tell you about this. So this is youth, yeah, youth from Ukraine, from different cities in Ukraine, and they decided to go to eastern Ukraine, to formerly occupied villages, villages closer to front line, and to show the Christmas play Vertep. Vertep, it is Ukrainian traditional Christmas play which like celebrates the birth of Jesus Christ. And this is like very traditional thing for Ukrainians on Christmas. So this young people wasn't afraid to go to the Eastern Ukraine and to show this Christmas play, to sing carols to people who stay in the city. And mostly I remember military. They showed this play for police, for doctors, of course, for children who stayed there in the hospitals. And for me, this is the example of what we all can do if we care enough. And that was their desire to come to these villages and to bring this kind of hope and joy to the people in need. And yeah, I remember I was so surprised to see that and the reaction of people who were so happy and they didn't expect at all to see in the middle of all these ruins, these people in costumes singing carols and bringing some kind of good news to them.
So for you, I mean, everything is new, right? As an emerging photojournalist. So from that standpoint, can you speak to what you thought at the end of the day when you're putting your head on your pillow to say, I can't believe what I saw? You know, can you explain what it felt like each night as you went to sleep?
That's a very good question. I remember that on the very first days, it was emotionally very difficult to see what I saw because, I take everything very personally. And it took me a lot of time to understand that when you work in this business, you have to find this kind of balance in order yourself to keep going and to still be able to do this. Because I do remember this my first nights when I was going to bed, I was thinking about what happened the same day. And I was taking this very close to myself. I think it's impossible not to be distant when you are Ukrainian and when you feel all this pain. But of course, this was like a work for me, hard work for me to understand that in order for me to do this work, I need to try to find this balance and to not to be distant, but you should be present at the moment, but at least to find other ways of thinking in this moments when you go to bed without
Yeah,
thinking
as
of
long
all
as
this horrible stuff which you just saw.
I will
So
give it a
for
try.
me, that was like really hard work to learn. I was also learning, and I'm still learning, like how to refocus myself and how to find different ways that will help me, first of all, to overcome this in order to do this again. Yeah. Here you can see images of in the Polish-Ukrainian border. This was also, so they are a little bit mixed because before I showed you already Kharkiv and Donetsk region. Here we go again back to Lviv and back to first days of full-scale war. We all know that there were huge lines of people waiting to cross the country in order to flee. And these people, so it was winter, and they were waiting days and nights in order to cross Ukraine because there were so many people who tried to flee and find a safer place. And about like all these questions that you are asking me, Frank, I have another good example. So I came here. This is like literally fourth or fifth day of full-scale war, and I came there, and I didn't expect to see all these lines, all the people with small children. It was very painful for me because I wanted to help somehow. And I do remember me, like I was just going around among these people, and I couldn't photograph at all. And I was just holding my camera and I was crying and I didn't know like what should I do? I just wanted to help them. I wanted to hug all these people. But then I realized that I unfortunately like I cannot help them in a literal way as I want, but my camera can help them. And again, this was my understanding that if I'm here and if I want to document this, I need to hold my emotions and to do my work. And after this, I feel this was like kind of a breaking point for me to understand that unfortunately I cannot help everyone, but with the help of my camera, I hope that it can influence somehow others.
That's a beautiful sentiment. I guess the question is, as you were emerging and starting this out, what were you doing with your images? Did you find context of where to send them to media outlets? How did that work for you?
Yeah, I before full scale war, I used to work as a photojournalist, and I worked in a freelance also. So people knew me somehow in Ukraine already. And when the full scale war happened, I was constantly photographing, and a lot of medias started approaching me on themselves. I didn't even have time for that, and they were giving me assignments, or sometimes I was just going and doing the work and afterwards I was sending them to the media. So for me it was important, if I do this work and if I decide to risk my life, I want to do it for a reason. And of course it's important to photograph and to have these pictures, but you need to, if I photograph them, I want the world to see them.
Mm,
So I was always trying to find medias. Sometimes it was Ukrainian medias. Later, I was working more and more. I switched to foreign international medias. So just like regular cycle of freelance photographer.
right. But for you, it was really like a step up, or it was this whole new world of all this international play with your images, because now the center of the world was right in your backyard, right? So you had to manage all this new context coming in. That had to be an incredible task as well. Mm.
Definitely, definitely, because I used to work in the photojournalism sphere before, but not that much.
Yeah,
And I just right before full-scale war, I was working as a photojournalist in Ukrainian media, the Ukrainians, like
right,
7 months, but I never worked as a freelance photographer. And
yeah,
basically, that was definitely new to me. And just with how time was going, I was developing and I was trying to understand how the sphere works.
right.
Okay, now we came back to Kharkiv, and basically most of my time during the since the beginning of full-scale war, I worked the most in Kharkiv. And I was also thinking a lot, why Kharkiv? I feel like there is kind of um, tension or connection between the city for me, and I always return into the city. And for example, I remember, since I was thinking about this a lot, why Kharkiv and why I continue going back there with assignments or without assignments, I just felt I have to go there. And I love this city. And because I'm from Ukraine. Yeah, I'm from Lviv, which is like the most western point from in Ukraine, and it was so different, weird, like at least for my family and for my friends to see that everyone is going like from Kharkiv to Western Ukraine, and I'm going from Western Ukraine to Kharkiv. Like no traffic for me. So.
Yeah. And what about this city did you love? Like the way you say
Yeah,
it, like it was like your friend.
I feel that's my memories which I have about the city right before full-scale war. So in February, right before the full-scale war had began, I remember I came to Kharkiv to my friends, photographers. I feel that Kharkiv was a city. I hope it is still like this, maybe a little bit less, but I'm sure it will go back to the state it was initially in the future. But this is like the Kharkiv has this amazing atmosphere and community of people with artists, photographers. You just like I have a lot of friends from Kharkiv who are photographers and artists, and that's like they invited me to come to Kharkiv to show my work, to spend time. So in February, right before full-scale invasion, I'm going to Kharkiv. I do remember this night. We went to the gallery. Some owner of the gallery gave us keys, and we were just showing our work to each other. There was like a community of photographers and artists, and we were showing the work to each other, drinking wine, talking. It was like, such a friendly atmosphere among professionals because we were like, again, showing our projects, thinking what we will do in the future. And this was such an amazing night for me. And so here I am again, like in 2 months, I'm going back to Kharkiv, and I see this totally different picture
Mm,
because Kharkiv is one of the biggest cities in Ukraine, right? This is very beautiful city. And here I'm coming back and I see like really empty streets, no transportation, all the supermarket shops, everything is closed, no electricity partially, a lot of buildings are destroyed and no people. And for me, that was so difficult to face and to see like the same city, but totally different, right? And but again, I felt maybe these memories, yeah, which I really try to keep in me, maybe they help me to keep going to the city and still to remember the city the way it is in my memory.
mm,
And of course, I met a lot of people while I'm going to Kharkiv for work, and I try to keep these connections, and I when I go back, I try to meet them to ask how they are, what are they doing. So this is just natural transition when it was, yeah, from these funny memories to all these connections which I made through my photography while photographing all these people.
mm.
This is these first images of Kharkiv which I made, and what I want to, so actually what I was trying to show here, when I'm making images for me, not just for regular assignment as a reportage, right? That's what I was trying to say in the first image. Where do we point our camera to? And I'm trying to talk about the human side of this conflict of the war, and to talk about how do they survive? Because yes, definitely war is about death and about violence, but it's also about life and love. It's about parents protecting their children or their adult children protecting their parents. And I also remember this first feeling in Kharkiv, which I maintain today. When I came there, I felt such a big love to each other. Maybe because, under all this stress and all this danger of life, you start appreciating every moment. And
Mm.
I saw all these people who were willing to help me and were willing to help each other. And that was also for me the example of the side which usually remains unseen or untold. And that's what I also strive to show in my images. This is the Dvorichna village in Kharkiv or Donetsk region, I forgot. Dvorichna village, which back then was literally a frontline village, and there were just few people left, and I remember I was with a team of of journalists. We were filming and making a movie, and I was photographing that. And we went to these people, and so they were showing woman and a man. They were showing their ruined yard, their destroyed home, and I do remember she was crying all the time. And she was like showing where she lives, that everything is destroyed, and she was crying, and he was just silently smoking, but still like showing like where they live. And I do remember that I felt so sorry for them. Like again, pointing my camera on her tears. Yeah, when she just like speaks, it is difficult. Like again, how to approach people when they're in such a vulnerable situation. It also took me for a while to understand how to work with them. And I remember I told her that at least you're alive, like everything will be okay, don't worry. I tried to encourage them somehow. And she responded me that I wish I wouldn't. And for me, that was like, I do realize that there are so many families like this, how difficult it is for them to start their life from the scratch. And unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah. Did being part of a team of other journalists and doing the movie and all the things, that camaraderie, how much did that help you to understand and to absorb and to not get too involved, but be involved? You just from an emotional standpoint, because this is all so new to you at the moment. How did being with other photographers, other photojournalists help you to get through these emotional ups and downs?
For me, and I think for everyone, it's when you work in these fields of conflicts photography, it's much easier to work in a team because you feel support, especially when you know these people quite well. It's not just one assignment and you got one photojournalist whom you never knew before. Yeah, but
Yeah.
sometimes you do work with people you worked before, you became friends. And this is, for me at least, it's very helpful to have someone who experiences the same but understands me the same. And at the end of the day, we can talk about this together and we will understand each other. So for me, working in a team definitely makes it a bit easier to overcome the situations and to photograph at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, and that relationship with your colleagues has to be so incredibly intimate, right? Because you're witnessing pain and suffering at the same moment, maybe a different set of eyes, but that experience must be, you can't share that with anyone other than the folks that lived it with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. You can later show pictures, tell it to different people, but still they will understand it on another level, on a little bit more distant level, because they didn't experience this at the moment. And having someone who is going with you, like next to you, and see everything you see, it's for sure much better and easier to overcome. But of course, like it's not always like this. Sometimes I do work alone, sometimes
Yeah,
I
yeah.
work on my personal projects, so I can imagine how to work alone and how to work with in a team. And definitely to some extent working in a team is easier, and it's helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
um This is Soldier. He is my good friend now. I met him in Kharkiv when on my first trip to Kharkiv. He was back then a volunteer, and I will tell you a little bit later about story in Shestakova, and he was a driver. So he was volunteering in Kharkiv, and I was photographing. I asked him back then. I didn't have any assignment that day, and I just found him. I asked, "Can I join you and photograph humanitarian help you provide to people and everything?" And that's how our friendship began. And later he went to the army, to the Ukrainian army, and he became a soldier. And later he got wounded because of that. He was on a combat mission, and there was kind of a drone attack. And after that, I remember that we met, and he was undergoing treatment and rehabilitation. And this is his son, 3 years. This is Maron, 3 years old boy. And for me, again, I was with Alexander, with the soldier, 1 year ago when he was volunteer. Now I'm coming back, and as I was telling you, I'm trying to meet these people I met before. And he introduced me to his son, and I do remember that for me, it's very important when I photograph people to get close and to show that I do care. I'm not just photographer making pictures. I'm here for you because I want to help you, or I want to be useful as well as you. So for me, it's very important. I also do believe that when you have this connection with people you photograph, it helps you to build these relations, and at the end the picture will be much more like truthful. It says much more because of this kind of connection.
And do you think being Ukrainian helped you to get deeper into these relationships, deeper into people opening the doors and their hearts to you?
Definitely, because we speak the same language, and I understand them. Like I do understand them because I'm here, and I also live here, and I also know what is the sound of this explosion. How does it feel? How do you react? I mean, we all live the same life, and I do feel that this like in the beginning, for example, I wasn't showing this kind of emotions. I was trying like to, as I was telling you, to find different approaches. How should I photograph vulnerable people in vulnerable situations, I mean. And then I realized that just be yourself, be open, like tell your story, why you are here, why I am photographing. And when they get to know me, they trust me, and I feel that this trust helps to build this connection between each other. This is another story which I always try to tell people, because for me this is a very moving story. I will read you this if you don't mind. It's in Shestakova, and was Alexander who drew me when he was volunteer, and when I first time came to Kharkiv. In May 2022, I found myself on a dangerous road to Shestakova, a village in the Kharkiv region of Ukraine. There was no access to the village because the Russians were close and could reach the road with the artillery. I accompanied a group of volunteers bringing humanitarian help to the village's citizens. After passing 5 or 6 checkpoints, we managed to enter the village. Only a few families remained. An older man ran out to us. "Look, people, how did you get here?" Afterwards, we met Lida. She was living in a house destroyed by the Russian shelling. We stood talking in her ruined yard. She described how the dog would start to bark right before the next shelling, how she gathered grass for the chickens and managed to save them, how her son came and sealed her windows with the tape. That's how she lived, alone in a house with no electricity, gas, and windows, among the ruins of other homes. And I do remember when I came to the city, to this village, and so volunteers gave all the food, all the medicines they had to the people they met. And then one man who was actually so surprised to see us in the village, he said, "Oh, by the way, there is another woman, Lida. and she lives like very distant from our houses, but you definitely want to go and visit her because she's older and she definitely needs your help. But we didn't have anything to give her because we gave volunteers gave all the food and all the everything they had to these citizens. But of course, we went to her just to talk, to ask how she is, and hopefully in future to come back to the city and provide also some help to her. So we were talking to her, like, and she was telling all the stories about the dog, about the chickens. She was so friendly. And at the end, she said, oh, I want to give you something, but I don't have anything. But actually, I have eggs. I want to give you some eggs. And for me and like for everyone, we were so surprised to hear that like person that has literally nothing, we didn't give her anything, just like maybe some water. And she was trying to give us something. And this is about this love I was telling about initially. Like I do want to tell the stories because usually I like the more personal it is, yeah, the more universal it becomes. But unfortunately, these details sometimes they are omitted. And when we talk about this, I do feel that this helps to understand like Ukrainians a bit better.
Yeah, that's an interesting line there. When something is so personal, it becomes universal.
I feel that
That's a
because
very interesting.
we can understand, we can when we see someone's and we hear the story, we can somehow relate to this parts of the story.
Yeah, yeah.
And when we hear this, yeah, when we hear names, not statistics, when we hear something more than just this general appearance, which we used to think, it matters.
Yes, it certainly does. Yes. It's a great story.
So this is North Saltivka, which is the in Kharkiv. It is the biggest residential area in Europe. This is huge, and this is the area which is facing Russia, like the closest parts from Kharkiv to Russia. And when the full-scale war began, when the Russia attacked Ukraine, it was attacking North Saltivka the most. Like a lot of the pictures I showed you from destroyed buildings were made in North Saltivka. And this is the series I made, which is called Under the Ground, about people who at 5 a.m., when the invasion began, they ran from their homes to the closest subway station and
Hmm.
they stayed there for 3 months. So basically, they were living on the platform. Women with small children managed to live inside of the trains. Nothing was working, of course. And that's how they tried to survive. And I was coming to these people, talking to them, and what I also realized that maybe you heard about the saying that it's not you who is taking a picture, it's a person who is giving you this picture or a portrait.
Hmm.
And for me, I do relate to this because here, for example, again, I was coming not just to make the portrait, I was talking to them. I was asking how do they live, how do they feel, how do you feel today? You know, and when I was asking how are you, they didn't expect even to listen to this question. Oh, this is another photojournalist who will just make picture and go. Yeah, but mm, having this possibility to hear that someone really cares and shows the interest to you, for me, that also gave this kind of, mm, it opened them to me and to my camera.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and speaking the language, it is so much more of an asset, right? Because they know that you get the nuance of their language and their life, right? Yeah, they.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And let me ask you, as you go through these, and it's now 2 years later, is it a different presentation in your head of as you look at them? Like, what changes for you as you look at it 2 years later?
What changes?
And maybe it doesn't change. Just,
Yeah,
you know,
I think it doesn't change a lot because I do remember how much I cared when I saw them. They were like literally these first people with whom I talked when I came to Kharkiv, yeah. And they made a big influence on me living in such bad conditions, but being able to enjoy their life. They were so happy to be there. They were saying like we are feeling good here, like at least we are safe. We will not die. And for me, this was like such a strong example that how much it depends on your perspective. And of
mm,
course, I stayed there a couple of days and they stayed there for 3 months. And for me, it was so difficult to be there even these 2 days because it is so packed with people. It is difficult emotionally. But they managed to find this different perspective and to see these things as something that makes them feel safe and find this kind of good qualities.
yeah,
And I was amazed by that, and I'm still amazed by them living there.
you really hit the right word, perspective. And I guess that's where I was going with the question, 2 years later, the perspective of this, how did you change in that way, 2 years later of doing more and more work, and now it's not brand new. It's now you're looking back now as a seasoned, experienced wartime photojournalist. That perspective, does it change anything for you on how you took the images from a photography standpoint?
Um, I wouldn't say that it changed much because I do remember myself being there and I was doing like my best not to not how to say, not to do anything harmful to them and to get in touch to them. And I would say if I would be there now, if I were there now, I would probably behave the same way. And I feel I was doing this right. Not always I have this feeling, but
Yeah,
luckily, yeah, with these people, I remember I was talking a lot, and they were so, at the end, they were so grateful for me to find this time to talk to them, you know.
mm,
Not all the time people are friendly. Of course they are not. Sometimes it's
yeah,
really difficult to approach people. But I do remember this specific people and this specific scenes. It was yeah, it was something very special.
yeah. And I assume as you look at these images, you can remember the smells and everything about being underground like that. That must be a very intense, experience to keep on coming
Yeah,
to.
yeah, for sure. Because again, it was cold.
Mm,
And being there, that's like how they lived.
mm,
And yeah, it is tough, you know, emotionally it is difficult. But again, seeing all these people so friendly to me and to others, and to show how strong they can be, and this is a good example to me.
yeah. Oh, and with all the presentations we've seen, how neat and clean everything was, the way the Ukrainians kept themselves in order instead of, just craziness. Everyone had their own space, and it was neat. And we
I
see
feel like, you know, when you are in this kind of horrible conditions, you want to make this kind of home atmosphere and feeling wherever you are. And even to feel this everyday monotony, which is not always good. But here you just want it. You just want to be sure that tomorrow will happen and it will be the same day. And that's amazing that
yeah,
tomorrow will be. And that's what I also felt the same. That's very good observation, Frank. That, yeah, people try to find these kinds of angles that keep them, keep this feeling of home
yeah.
wherever they are. Uh, Here I have another story. Because, you know, sometimes we think about that picture should speak for itself. I doubt whether it should speak for itself or not, but personally, I'm not afraid of text or other representations that will help to show the bigger picture what you see. And for example, here, when I go to Eastern Ukraine, and actually I try to do it all the time, I do keep a diary. And this is, you were also asking me about how do I feel laying in the evening when I go to bed, yeah? And this was what I wrote on the same day in the evening. Let me show you. Just a second, please. So, I'm standing in the middle of the ruined road in a thin green jacket and green scarf. Another day with other distractions around. I'm very cold. Next time I will wear a winter coat for such trips. What a stupid idea to wear this green jacket. I should have listened to my mom, since she is always right and can predict the weather wherever I go. I keep thinking about the military in the field. They are probably cold too, probably much more. I hope they listen to their moms better than I do. I hope they have people who care about them. From the middle of nowhere, I hear a loud noise. I know it's ours, but still leaning closer to the ground. 3 tanks are passing by. I know they are going to that place where we hear loud explosions. They are smiling at us and waving their hands. Their mood reminds me of the mood as they go home where they could wear their green jacket. We are driving farther to the east. It's getting darker. The sky looks like a very bad painting by some dilettante artist. It looks harsh. My back hurts much because of the heavy body armor that I keep wearing for the third hour without any change. We listen to Ukrainian music. The song is called Sun Loves Us Every Day. It's about unconditional love. Very childish song, very warm song. The closer we go to the front line, the more positive songs we listen to. In the middle of the song, Bogdan's phone rings. He speaks short and turns off the music. I ask what happened. He said the military we were with called and said that among the 3 tanks we saw, only one came back. And for me, when you hear the story, right, you perceive pictures differently. And I do feel that sometimes it is important to share what is really behind these images and to think more what these images represent.
So
This is
there was something that you had written in there, and it sounds from listening to what you wrote about the jacket, and your mother telling you to wear the warmer jacket, all of that. Like that had to be a moment where, without saying it, you were saying, "I miss my parents, I miss my family." In that's what that felt like listening to it. Um, which leads me into the question: as you're going through this, at the time, what was the communications with your parents, with your family?
uh, that's also a very funny thing because, for example, when I first went to Kharkiv within like these 2 months when it was extremely dangerous to be there, and I didn't tell my parents I'm going to Kharkiv. I said I'm going to Kyiv. I said I'm going to Kyiv, and that's horrible. I feel so bad that I was lying, but I just wanted to help them, not to worry about me. And then after a few days, I realized, okay, I have images which I have to publish, and basically they're from Kharkiv. I need to tell the truth, especially taking into account the work I do. And I remember I called my mom and I said that, Mom, like, don't worry, but I'm not in Kyiv, I'm in Kharkiv. And of course, she was super worried and she was super sad and upset and everything. But I said, like, Mom, I'm sorry for lying to you. I will never lie again where I am. I will always tell you the truth. But please support me and don't try to forbid me anything. Like, of course, they will not. But yes, they can say, don't go or something, right? And it's not making easier. And she said, of course, okay, like that's a good lesson for both of us. And after that, I'm always telling like where I'm going. They honestly got used to this now, and they just as worried as they were in the beginning, but they understand now like better like what I do and how important it is for me to show what's happening in Ukraine.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, so this is the project which is called Holding Hope. This is about Ukrainians who survived Russian occupation, and I was going to different cities formerly occupied by Russians and asking them to write the memory of time under occupation. And I do remember an interesting thing that mostly people didn't want to say anything, and especially to write. They were like, why should we write? Like, you write, or something, or like, I have bad handwriting. Like, people didn't understand like why I want to do this. But for me, that was again example that photography and different approaches, how we use photography, it can serve as a tool of evidence, as a testimony. It can serve as, I hope, as a healing process when, when you write something down, you try to accept this and let it go. So that was my initial intention too. And also, I just cared a lot what really these people have to say and what are these people are silent about. And I do remember that in the beginning it was very difficult because people didn't understand why I'm doing this, and they were like, they didn't know that others care. And I remember, for example, one man, he was saying that uh, I don't know what to write. I have nothing to tell you, blah, blah, blah. And then I was asking actually everyone to write whatever you want. It can be one word, it can be one sentence, it can be painting, whatever you want. And that's the same I said to this man, write one sentence, and he wrote 3 pages at the end. And for me, that was again an example of sometimes we just don't know. And sometimes in order to get to know something, we need to find these different angles, how to approach people.
Right.
And yeah, here this is also like, yeah, very difficult for me to look at because this is a girl, she's from Mariupol. She luckily managed to escape, but she was under occupation and she was escaping with her parents later. And I met her in the Western Ukraine, and I didn't want to traumatize this child in any way, I
Yeah.
just said that you remember your city, what like last days, like how would you react? Just maybe you can paint something. And she made this unicorn. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting imagining you reaching out to the children and these adults to write something. Like, that must be a pretty intense thing in the middle of the hell that they're living in. This angel comes upon them and is photographing and asking them to share their human emotion around that. It must take a tremendous amount of strength for them to stop and now do this, right? I mean, the trust and respect they must have for you to allow for you to be allowed into their mental space is an intense and very, very intense situation to find themselves in.
Definitely. I would say that this project was for me also like the most difficult to do because when I was approaching these people, I was spending so much time with them, so I wanted them to know who I am, that I do care, that I do want to hear their story. And it took me a lot of time to get their trust, and I spent a lot of time with everyone, and I'm so happy because I managed to get to know them better. But yeah, like how to approach, how to find the right words, how not, like the least thing I wanted to do, I wanted to traumatize them more with this, right?
Yeah.
And like to find this balance, how to do it in order, like for good intention. It made I thought a lot about this before like approaching these people. How should I do this? How should I react? What should I ask them? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And this is another story. When I like read this, I was so surprised. So this is Bogdan. He's 19 years old. And I was asking him like to write something, and he was saying, "Oh, I have nothing to tell you at all, nothing interesting. I have nothing to tell you." He was super shy. But we were talking a lot about everything, not about occupation. I don't know, I don't remember what about wine or something. I don't remember. There was a totally different conversation. And then we were just like going back and forth to war and to life without war. And then at the end, he said, "Okay, Eva, you know what? I know what I want to write." And he just said and wrote this story, and I will translate it to you. The first month was the hardest, both morally and physically. It was morally tough to see our soldiers leaving the city and then a week later to see columns of Russians arriving. To help our armed forces in any way I could, I started counting enemy equipment, and with the help of my friend from the border service, relaying this information to the security service of Ukraine. Every day I was sitting by the window with my phone and a piece of paper and a pen, and at the end of the day I was deleting the messages and burning this paper. This continued for several months until all communication was lost. And for me, this is like such a story. And I'm so happy he told this, he shared this, because I do believe that world should know these people who risk their life. Like he was risking this 100%. If Russians knew anything about helping Ukrainians or even having pro-Ukrainian position, like they would just kill him. And he knew that. And
So
nevertheless,
what do you think made him share such an important, intimate story with you?
I think maybe he saw that how much I care about Ukraine personally, and how much I am dedicated to my work wherever I go, whatever I do. And maybe he saw that I was sharing my experience, like what I was doing this time, yeah. And maybe this helped him to open himself because I was open with him. Because for sure he thought about this time and about this current experience he had. But maybe he was not sure he can trust me, so he can tell the story, or do I care for sure to hear this. I think this time and again opened myself, and he just saw my example and did the same.
Yeah, something that came to my mind is that do you think, and this is my imagination, that for history should know that I did this because I could die tomorrow. And when the history books are written, this is something that I did. For my country, when history is written, that in this town, in this city, in this village, this is what we did.
Yeah, but he was so humble,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
he
yeah.
was thinking, like he was not telling this, oh, like right away, oh,
No,
I
no,
want to tell you a story,
yeah, no, I don't mean it from bravado. I mean it just
Mm,
like you having a world view, thinking like there's like the French resistance, right? There's always a resistance. He was doing his
yeah,
piece like you are for history. You
yeah,
just,
for sure. And yeah, I appreciate him sharing this because for me, that's
yeah.
like, yeah, it speaks about Ukrainians, and I'm proud to know him and to have his photograph and have him included into this project.
Right. I mean, he is a hero, right? I mean, what he did, no less or more than anybody else, but that piece of what he did is heroic.
Yes,
And now we know.
absolutely. Yes, and now we know, and again, I'm so happy that with the help of photography, I can share these stories to
Yeah,
others.
great. Because I'm sure some of the other notes that you got were sentimental.
Yeah, they were so actually, yeah,
They
it's so
love they miss their wives, their husbands. My village is ruined, all of that. And he had a different piece there that stays with us just as strong.
yes, for sure. I would say that everyone, when they started writing, they thought a lot. And that was also, I think, good point that I asked them to write. Yes, because before, right? Because they were telling me a lot, and they were saying, "Oh, like you write, I will tell you." And I said, "No, please, can you write this?" And then they were sitting and thinking, about
Mm.
like something that literally matters and something that they experience and what they want to share.
Yeah,
Yeah. When I was reading, like I have like this kind of small book, what they wrote, and I definitely need to translate it in English
yeah,
because this is important.
yeah. And you would see if in other conflicts somebody did the same thing, it'd be interesting to see the similarities
Yeah,
of
I never discovered this, but that's a good point. Yeah.
you know the similarities of hell that is war, right? You know
Yeah.
that too many people suffer. Go. Mm.
So now I want to talk about the war, but in a bit a different way. Because like we all got used to this straightforward photojournalistic images of war, dead bodies, violence, and everything. And unfortunately, yes, we have to photograph this and we have to show this. But unfortunately, sometimes people got used to this horrible reality so much that they don't want to see it this.
Mm.
And I feel that our roles as photographers is to think how we can make people look at things they don't want to look. Because definitely they have to do this. Because unfortunately, the war is still happening and we still need to talk about this. And for me, with this kind of projects, I was trying to find like another angle and another approach how I can talk about the war. But this is actually about the second project, but I will I will go to this later. So, and also what I was telling you that um, when we photograph, right, behind every image there is photographer and there is person. And I do believe that when we make images, it's not only about mm, what we see on the picture. It's also part of photographer on this image. And for me, this is very personal project which I made and I want to share with you. So here we can see the road which I take going to the eastern and south Ukraine. And I was thinking a lot taking this road, like what is this about? What is this road silent about? What is behind every ruined car and destroyed road sign and tree? And what does it mean for me? And then I got like deeper into my memories, and I recalled that basically this is the same road I took 20 years ago when I was going from Lviv to Crimea with my family. So I was a child back then, and every summer we were going by car to Crimea, like with my father, mother, and a sister. And for me, that was like such an joyful, playful, warm memories of this time, especially the road. Because I do remember we were like singing songs, talking. Usually your parents are busy all the year, and here finally, like you have all the attention, and that's how I remember this. Also, I do remember that all like so basically this is like 25 hours road from Lviv to Crimea. It's a lot. And my father, he was always trying to find the fastest road to get there before it is too dark to set the tent and everything every year. And every year we ended up somewhere lost in the middle of nowhere. And we were just sleeping in this field, and this was like fun because we were not stressed. We will definitely go, we are going to rest. And for me, this is like very childish warm memories of this road. And now I see this road in totally different way. Yeah. And it is hard. It is difficult because the road of this love, joy, and hopes now is the road of death. But again, through photography, you can try at least to understand yourself better, So for me, I do use photography as a tool to document the reality I live in, but also this is the tool to understand myself better. And finding these different approaches, they definitely help to understand something more or something else. And I do want to end on the positive note as on this picture that despite of all the distractions and ruins and everything that we are going through, one day this road will be again the same or closer to the one I have in my memories.
Yeah, I think it will.
Oi. This is another, I'm just afraid that I'm taking too much time. Is it okay?
No. Where you remember our conversation yesterday that, I told you it's 45 minutes, right? Right. And that's always what happens. No, this is wonderful. Please continue.
So this is again my intention to find different approach how I can talk about the war, but in different way, in order to engage the viewer, in order to find other ways to tell the same story and to find this way. But unfortunately, we all, and maybe not unfortunately, but we all live in this visual world of scrolling images and seeing everything. And we see so many that we forget everything. We scroll where everything was above. So my intention here, and what I'm trying to do still, is to find these ways and to make these pictures that while scrolling you will stop and you will remember, and the picture that will help you think about what you see or what it is about and what this image actually represents. So this is the project which is called The Wall. And I do remember, okay, I already said what is this, but I do remember when I was asking sometimes people were coming to me and asking what are these images about. And I was like asking, what do you see here? And they were saying like, oh, I see painting, I see galaxy, there was something else. And then, yeah, I was telling them that this is the walls of residential buildings burned by Russian shellings across Ukraine. And I made this project within one first year of full-scale war all over Ukraine in different villages, in Kharkiv, in Kyiv, in Bucha, in Odessa, in Mykolaiv. With this project, I wanted to highlight these Russian crimes which it commits towards civilians, right? And wherever you are, wherever you are in Ukraine, you are in danger as long as the war continues. Because unfortunately, the Russia violates all the rules of war and all the standards of war, yeah, and unfortunately, civilians suffer so much every day. And I do hope that, again, with this project, you can have so many questions, like what are you looking at? Why you're looking at this? Or how like something beautiful, yeah, something horrible can be still beautiful, and can it be still beautiful when we know what is behind these images? I doubt they are beautiful when we know what is behind that. But again, you have so many questions in mind looking at this series, and that was my intention, because I do believe, and only here you basically see what it is about. And for me, this is way to engage viewer and to think. And I do feel that the more questions we have, the more answers we can get, or at least you will look at this image and you will think about the war maybe like a little bit more than you used to do it yesterday.
Fair enough.
So this is my last project I will share with you, which I did in New York, in the United States, this year. This is about wounded Ukrainian soldiers who came to US for prosthesis and rehabilitation. And I was also, before doing this project, thinking a lot how I want to show these people And because we saw so many articles in medias already about wounded soldiers, and I didn't want just again to repeat others or to do like this think about rehabilitation in this literal way. I'm hopefully sometimes I succeed, sometimes I'm not, but I'm trying to find this not literal ways of telling the stories. And here again, my intention was to talk about these people not as a soldiers as a first place, but about as a humans, and to understand like what fears they have, what stories they have, what dreams they keep. And I want also to read you a short abstract from the interview I conducted with one of the soldiers about how he lost his limb. In July 2023, I was near Priyutny in Zaporizhia region. After surviving 2 attacks and taking part in a combat mission, I had to come back to the base alone. I got lost on the road and I stepped on a mine. My foot was turned off completely. I am lying in the middle of a minefield. I'm looking at the sky and experiencing such a sharp pain. I'm kind of a lover of astronomy, space, and everything. My aunt is an astronomer, and I have used telescopes since I was 3 years old. And I'm laying there stupidly, damn, this starry sky. Nothing shines anywhere like that, only stars. And you are like, well, damn, maybe I will die now, and I haven't explored all the stars.
Wow.
And yeah, for me, like this is such a moving example of what really all these people keep, all the soldiers keep, and what we usually don't notice because of everything else. And here, like again, my intention in photography is to find this different, to go a bit deeper, to dive deeper, and to find this hidden meanings which still exist. Yeah,
Listening to that story is similar to listening to your story of being on that road to Crimea, right? It's, people, to your credit, will shed their skin to tell you these stories, because that's an intimate moment, right? He's laying there and you could see him laying there, not knowing, but, the story of being a young boy looking through a telescope is just, that they would share that with you, like you shared with us that road to, we all saw you and your parents in that tent on the side of the road. Like that is such an intimate moment. All of those are such intimate moments, and that's really your gift to your photography, that you can share your own stories and other people's stories that they will share with you. That's really wonderful.
definitely. I'm trying to be as much honest as possible, and if I want to hear the stories from people, like I'm ready to be the same and to
Mhm.
share my experience and to share like my difficult stories which I have. And yeah, I feel that how it should be, at least that's how I see it.
Yeah, and I'm sure as you are giving, they give back, your subjects.
They give a lot. Yes, I do appreciate people I photograph so much.
Wow.
And so I was making this presentation for you, and I saw this picture which I took maybe like 2 years ago, even maybe, yeah, approximately 2 years ago. It is in Mykolaiv or in Har, I think it's in Mykolaiv. And that was also interesting for me because I didn't remember this picture and I never published this image anywhere. And today I was like looking at this image and thinking that it is so meaningful, especially
Yeah.
now. I didn't see this meaning two years ago. That's also interesting. Yeah, I didn't notice this picture. And today, with all the experience I've got, I'm looking at this image and yeah, it makes me think about what's really happening. And I do believe that uh, as long as we like, keep defending our country, keep fighting for our freedom, as long as people support Ukraine, yeah, we will see this blue sky above us.
Yeah, that
definitely.
is a beautiful shot. And that is somebody's home or an office building? What
This
building?
was an office. This is an office building. It's pro office building that was ruined in Mykolaiv, and also we had this huge destruction of the city council building, this one, and another one in Kharkiv. If I'm not mistaken, this one from Mykolaiv. I need to go back and find this where it was, but I think this was in Mykolaiv. Yeah.
Yeah, that's yeah, it'd be interesting to see that photograph at night with stars in the sky too.
Right? Yeah, I was also when I today I was looking at this image, I was like, "Oh, Eva, why you left? You should have
Yeah.
stayed there. You should have taken pictures from from different skies." That I was thinking about this for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
would be so beautiful.
Yeah. It's but yeah, that's beautiful. So
Thank you. Actually, yeah, that's it. Thank
all
you
right, so
so much.
stop sharing.
Uh-huh. How to stop
So,
sharing?
what do you do for your own mental health? Right? Because
Just that I have not.
you go through so much and you meet so many people and you're sharing everyone's stories. What do you do to make sure that you're okay?
Um, Honestly, I'm not sure if I'm okay.
Okay, all right. That
But yeah, like definitely, the more we, the more I work in this, the more I do need to have some kind of moments of relief that will help me to overcome this. And in the beginning, as I told you, I was trying to find this balance, what will and to find this kind of different thinking, what will help me to stay positive and to still do the work I do. So I feel that I just managed to. I realized actually that the power of perception is so strong, and I feel that this kind of my emotional attitude to my work and the understanding that I have to do this because we can see the soldiers who sacrifice their actual life, yes, and I can talk about these people who volunteers who also risk their life. I think about all these people, and actually, it gives me a power to stay strong as well as they are, because unfortunately, we don't have now much of the choice. And when I think about others, I feel this helps me to keep going. I wouldn't say that I have this kind of rule, like of course, sometimes watching movies or something which is not related to war helps for one night, but there should be something more inside that will help you to keep going.
And what's next for you? What is the next project? Where are you going? What is it?
Oh, I have so many plans. So basically, this year I was in New York. And for me, I'm like, it was great time for me to work. And that's when I did this project about Ukrainian soldiers. So basically, I was very worried when I was going to New York, living Ukraine, and working here 2 years within the full-scale war. And how would I leave my parents, my friends, my work here? That was very difficult decision for me. But yeah, I went to ICP, International Center of
Oh,
Photography,
yeah.
and for me, like, okay, I had this chance, possibility. I want to get better and to get more professional. Because as we were talking about with you, that in the beginning, it all just went naturally. But I did feel that I need more experience and I need some kind of more knowledges, which I would be able to implement coming back to Ukraine. And now, after this year of like studying, of working with this long-term project with the military, I feel I got so much more, and so I'm here again in Ukraine, and I have so many ideas what I want to do. Basically, I'm going to Kharkiv in 1 week, where I will stay a lot, and because I have 2 projects which I'm gonna start there, and that also what helps me keep going the work that I want to do and the work which I want to show, because it's all about people in my
Right.
country, people in Ukraine. Yeah.
Yeah. And will you try to connect with some of the people that you photographed previously in Kharkiv when you go?
Yeah, honestly, I was thinking a lot that I want to go back to this family and to talk to Bogdan, the one who was telling the story
Yeah.
about him helping Ukraine.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I will also go to the soldier who was wounded with in a hand. And yeah, I feel I'm very much connected to these people, and I would definitely love to come back to them and to think to see how they live. Yeah.
Let me ask you, does your family speak English? Your
They
parents?
speak, my mother speak English a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, because the next time you come on, we need her on. We need to know what she thinks of her daughter who's lying to her sometimes and not telling her the truth and all of that. But yeah, I cannot tell you how much we appreciate, your work and your dedication and your really your intimate details of what you do and how you do it and why you do it. It's really very, very inspiring,
Thank
for
you.
all of us. So I thank you. And please, you should know, Eva, that you have an invitation anytime you have new work that you want to show us. Please, reach out and we will get you on again because all of this work is so important for all of us to see and to continue to see because now, unfortunately, there will be years and years of rebuilding and hopefully it will be over soon and people can go back to whatever may be normal. It's important what you're doing. So I give you the last words of the evening so you can sign us off. So give us your
I just want, yeah, I just want to say thank you so much, Frank, for what you do, for, of course, inviting me and giving me this possibility to tell about Ukraine and to speak about Ukraine. But I'm really very, I appreciate and I'm very grateful for the work you do in general and having this podcast, especially for devoted to Ukraine, and especially now, it's so important because unfortunately people got used to this, people forget, people don't pay attention, and what you do is actually you are showing that here people are still fighting in their ways, they are still working there, and they are still talking about Ukraine. And thank you so much for your support to Ukraine, and I feel that this support is very, very important. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Well, we'll continue to do that. So thank you for that. I thank you again. Please be safe. Listen to your parents. Listen to your parents. That's the big lesson we all get here tonight. But really, thank you and be safe and please be stay in touch with us so that we
Sure.
know that you're well. So that was I mean that was listening to it again. I mean, this kid is, I mean, kid, I mean, she is really doing terrific work, a great storyteller. I mean, we have to remember her name. I mean,
How old is she?
I don't, she's at ICP. I'm going to guess. I don't know. I
She's
don't want
29.
She's yeah,
29.
yeah, she
Okay.
said
So
her age,
yeah,
29.
Linda was listening more than I would. Yeah, that's right. With her sister, who's 7 years older. Yeah, so she's a young person, doing important work and being a terrific storyteller and really shedding her skin. I mean, my God, how what she's going through. So, yeah, that was really really wonderful, really
Hey,
really wonderful.
Yeah.
I was about to ask a question, so I didn't know it was recorded. And then I
Yes.
saw you twice. I'm like, wait a minute.
No. Yeah. That's.
You were right.
It was yeah it was really yeah, I should listen to them more again and again because there's nuggets in there that are really terrific from photographers doing all this important work. I mean, like what everyone's doing is important in its own way. So that's who we had. Anyone has a comment, you know fine. She was trying to come in, but I guess wherever she is in Ukraine now, she couldn't get a connection. And of course, it is in the middle of the night for them.
Yeah.
Uh,
Frank, where are her parents? I missed the beginning. Where do
I
they
bel-
live? Are they here in New York?
no, no, no.
Oh,
Everyone is in Ukraine.
Ukraine. Oh, okay,
It
okay.
was Kiev.
No, her family's from Lvov.
Well, okay. Yeah. So,
Sorry, I'm just jumping in because I'm
no,
multitasking,
Stephanie.
you know
Thank
that?
Yeah, but the whole family seems to be scattered around in Ukraine, from what she said early on. Yeah, and she's just doing terrific work, like so many other people are, and she'll be back. I know she's going to be in New York at some point because I think she's going to finish up at ICP some classes.
Actually, I can speak to that too. She's done with the
Stephanie,
ICT program.
Stephanie, what are you doing later in the week? I'd like you to take over. That would be great.
Sorry.
No, it's good. Tell us, Stephanie.
She's coming back to New York for the Eddie Adams workshop next month.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but
upstate New York.
she's graduated from the documentary program last June, and so she was one of my students in that program. So
Okay.
I
Great.
know
Yeah,
about all these things.
Yeah, no, it's good to have all this factual information. And so she had been at ICP for 2 years?
No, the documentary program is 9 months, basically. It started last week and they would finish in the end of June.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right. So
For documentary and creative practice 1-year program.
Okay, great. Yeah, so she'll be, that's what, is that veteran, the 11th, like the 11th of November, like, is that weekend?
It's Eddie Adams workshop is
Yeah.
Columbus Day weekend, so it's I think 11th, 12th, 13th, those 4 days or so, 3 days, 3 or 4
Right.
days. I think everybody goes on Friday.
Yeah, that is a great workshop. I did that once as a reviewer, and that was a great experience, really a great experience. They do terrific work with all those young photographers. Yeah, and it's no surprise that she got in, right? No surprise at all. So that's great. Any other comments? If not, we're going to be here tomorrow and Friday night. Tomorrow we have Madeline Kelly and Mark David Harris, and on Friday we have Svet Bakanova and Sarah Lean, who will be talking about their latest book, also on Ukraine. So if there isn't any other comments, we will see everyone tomorrow that can make it in. And Stephanie, you are officially the co-host. So or the fact checker. You're the fact checker.
I'm sorry, I'm like really multitasking because this is a difficult time of day for me to be on these work calls. But no, it's like work. But I have a lot of multitasking I'm doing just to sort of jump in and be listening and watching when I can, and I appreciate that very much. So, but I only knew last night and tonight. I don't have any more, inside information for the rest of your guests this week, and I look forward to trying to see them.
Yes, yeah. Well, they'll all be on YouTube, on our YouTube channel.
That's great.
And when you go there, subscribe and So thank you everyone for coming in, and we'll see you in the next few days.